Wanted to give everyone a quick little insight into what I've gotten working as the first step of setting up an SSO authentication service so we can connect to it in preparation for Chick-fil-A exposing their SSO service. So this will give us an early start on the thing. First of all, I just wanted to show you as a starting point of this that I've got some virtualized services of my own written so that I can add the SSO authentication process to them. There's a URL associated with that. I had the details in the email I sent. This is actually the code. Forgive me, it's PHP, but there it is, and it responds to each of the potential service operations being asked to it by essentially sending back the JSON file. That's all it's doing. It's real simple right now. It can be extended later. Eventually, it's throwaway code when we get the real web services working. But I wanted to show you this. So there's the services. There's what a call to it would look like. Right now, I don't require authentication into those services. So if you use any REST client to do a GET to that, you'll see fairly quickly the data come back. So there it is. We've done the locations call. You'll recognize the data as locations JSON data. That's pretty static. It works for any of the other ones as well. There's the awards data, etc. Okay, so no big deal, and that's not the relevant piece. Here's what I wanted to show you now. So let me tail a log file that we'll want to see here. Okay, so this is the code, and this is the setup code that actually does the authentication against the authentication service that I've set up. And so let me just turn off that code, turn this code back on again. These are the three relevant lines that are doing it for us. If we call to this require authentication method, it turns out that it's attempting to figure out if you've already logged in and have the appropriate cookie set. If you don't, it'll throw up a login page. And then once that's finished, it'll come back and finish all the rest of the stuff we saw before. This is just some logging to an error log file. So after that, we just head on down here to the stuff you already saw. So let me show you how that works. We've now turned on authentication. I saved that file out. Now this isn't going to work exactly as we want it to work in our UI, but this will give you a flavor for it. I'm going to do exactly the same GET operation again. This time we'll see a slightly different behavior, a longer processing time, and instead of getting back the service JSON, because we aren't authenticated yet, I happen to be getting back the HTML that represents the login page that's provided by the authentication service. Now this won't be what we'll use for our code, but I nevertheless wanted to show you how it worked. Now I can't enter this information here because this interacts with the REST client in a strange way, but I can go over to my to the dashboard for the actual service provider authenticator piece of it. That's the piece that's under my control. I can do a login by clicking this. And notice that I get thrown to that same login page that you pretty much saw here, but I'm seeing it in a full browser window, so it's going to work properly. I'm going to hit login. That's provided by the third-party service. Now I'm back to my service provider page. Here it is, all my attributes. None of this is particularly relevant, except you'll notice we're now logged in. And one way to note that, by the way, is that you notice now that we've got this authentication cookie here, and that is what's placed and carried throughout the session now until we either log out or this times out. Okay. Now that we're logged in, I'm going to do the same service call, and lo and behold, we're authenticated, so it comes back immediately. All right. And again, it all works properly. I'd go back to the old style by forcing a log out. The cookie is now either removed or expired. I'm not actually sure which it is. One of those two, so that if I go back here and now, again, do exactly the same GET operation, I'm going to end up with that whole situation again. So authentication can now be made to work against in other words, the way to put this is the virtualized services are only going to allow you to call them if this code is turned on right here. For purposes of accessing it, you have to be authenticated. If you're not, you'll be thrown to an authentication page. We'll probably change the behavior here so that rather than doing that, we'll talk about the details of how to integrate this properly, but at least the framework is set up now for this. So just wanted to show you guys that. We'll talk more in detail in the coming week.